My first stop in London was the Tower of London, one of the city's most iconic landmarks. This historic castle has stood for nearly 1,000 years and has played many important roles in English history. It was originally built as a royal palace, and over the centuries, it has also served as a fortress and a prison. Walking through the tower, I could feel the weight of its history, and it was fascinating to imagine how it might have looked hundreds of years ago. One of the most interesting parts of the Tower of London is the crown jewels. These priceless treasures are kept in a secure display, and visitors can see the magnificent crowns, scepters, and ceremonial objects that have been used by British monarchs for centuries. The sparkling gems and intricate designs are absolutely stunning, and they really show the wealth and power of the royal family. As I explored the castle grounds, I also learned about some of the famous prisoners who were held there. Stories of kings, queens, and even commoners passing through the tower made the visit even more engaging. The architecture itself is impressive, with its tall stone walls, towers, and narrow walkways. Every corner seemed to tell a story. Visiting the Tower of London was not only a journey through history but also an opportunity to practice my English. I read the signs, listened to the guides, and learned new words related to castles, history, and royalty. It was a truly unforgettable experience, and I highly recommend it to anyone visiting London. The Tower of London is more than just a castle, it's a place full of history, culture, and fascinating stories that bring the past to life. After visiting the Tower of London, I continued my journey to one of London's most famous landmarks, Buckingham Palace. This magnificent building is the official residence of the British monarch and has been a symbol of the monarchy for over 300 years. As I approached the palace, I was immediately struck by its grand architecture, the elegant facade, and the perfectly manicured gardens surrounding it. The sheer size of the palace is impressive, with its iconic balcony where the royal family appears during special occasions. Seeing it in person was much more impactful than seeing photos online. One of the highlights of my visit was witnessing the changing of the guard. This daily ceremony is a long-standing tradition in which the soldiers responsible for guarding the palace change shifts in a highly organized and formal manner. The guards wear traditional red tunics and bearskin hats, which make them look both regal and iconic. As the ceremony began, I could hear the music of the military band playing lively tunes, and the precise marching and synchronized movements of the soldiers were fascinating to watch. It was amazing to see how disciplined and professional the guards were, and it gave me a real sense of the importance of this royal tradition. While observing the ceremony, I also learned a lot about British culture and history. The changing of the guard is not just a show, it represents centuries of tradition, loyalty, and dedication. I noticed how tourists from all over the world gathered to watch, take photos, and enjoy the spectacle. Many families brought children, and everyone seemed excited to witness this piece of British heritage. I even tried to describe what I was seeing in English to a few fellow tourists, which was a great way to practice speaking and expand my vocabulary. Words and phrases like ceremony, regal, tradition, guards, and procession were very useful for my English practice. Beyond the ceremony, the area around Buckingham Palace is beautiful and full of interesting sights. The palace gardens are expansive, with colorful flower beds, large fountains, and perfectly trimmed hedges. St. James's Park, which is nearby, adds a peaceful contrast to the bustling city streets. Walking around, I enjoyed seeing the swans and ducks in the park's lake, and I noticed how well maintained the paths and greenery were. It was a perfect place to slow down, take photos, and reflect on the historical significance of the palace. I also spent some time learning about the history of Buckingham Palace itself. Originally built as a townhouse for the Duke of Buckingham in the early 18th century, it was later acquired by King George III and gradually transformed into the royal residence we know today. Over the years, the palace has witnessed countless important events, from royal weddings and birthdays to state ceremonies and official receptions. Reading about the palace's history while standing in front of it made me feel connected to the past in a way that is hard to describe. The combination of architecture, tradition, and personal stories of the royal family made the visit deeply engaging. During my time at Buckingham Palace, I also practiced my English skills in a very natural way. I read informational signs, listened to audio guides, and spoke with other tourists and guides. I learned new words related to royal life, such as monarch, sovereign, residence, staterooms, and ceremonial duties. I also improved my descriptive language by trying to explain what I saw using complete sentences. For example, the palace is magnificent, and the guards are very disciplined. This kind of practice helped me feel more confident speaking English in a real-life context. The changing of the guard is also a great way to observe British manners and etiquette. Even though there were many tourists, everyone was respectful, standing quietly, taking turns to take photos, and clapping politely at the end. It was a lesson in patience and respect, which are important cultural values. I noticed how children were guided to watch quietly, and how families enjoyed the event together, making it not only a historical experience but also a social one. In addition to the ceremony and gardens, I took time to admire the details of the palace architecture. The columns, windows, and decorative elements are all carefully designed, showing the skill and artistry of the architects and craftsmen. Every aspect of Buckingham Palace tells a story, from its historical origins to its current role as the home of the British monarch. I found myself imagining life inside the palace, the daily routines of the royal family, and the preparation that goes into hosting state events. It was both educational and inspiring. As I left Buckingham Palace, I felt a deep appreciation for the history, culture, and traditions that this iconic landmark represents. It was more than just a place to take photos, it was a living symbol of British heritage. Visiting Buckingham Palace allowed me to learn not only about the monarchy but also about how history shapes modern life. I also gained confidence in my English skills by describing the palace, the ceremony, and my impressions to others. Overall, my visit to Buckingham Palace was a highlight of my trip to London. The grandeur of the palace, the excitement of the changing of the guard, the beauty of the gardens, and the opportunity to practice English in a real-world setting made it an unforgettable experience. I highly recommend that anyone visiting London take the time to see Buckingham Palace, observe the ceremony, and explore the surrounding area. Whether you are interested in history, architecture, or culture, Buckingham Palace has something for everyone, and it offers a unique opportunity to immerse yourself in British tradition while improving your English. After experiencing the grandeur of Buckingham Palace, I decided to spend the next part of my London trip exploring the British Museum, one of the most famous museums in the world. The British Museum is renowned for its incredible collection of artifacts from many different cultures and historical periods. From ancient civilizations to more modern societies, the museum offers a fascinating glimpse into human history and creativity. As I approached the building, I was immediately impressed by its iconic facade, with grand columns and a vast entrance that made me feel as though I was stepping into a place of great importance and knowledge. Entering the museum, I was greeted by the stunning Great Court, a massive central space with a beautiful glass roof that allows sunlight to pour in, illuminating the area. The openness of the space immediately gave me a sense of awe, and I could see visitors from all over the world moving from one exhibit to another, marveling at the artifacts on display. The British Museum is free to enter, which makes it accessible to everyone, and it is an excellent place to combine sightseeing with educational learning. As I explored the museum, I realized that the collection is vast and diverse, covering regions from Europe, Africa, Asia, and the Americas. I started with the Ancient Egypt section, where I saw beautifully preserved mummies, intricate jewelry, and detailed hieroglyphics. Reading the information panels, I learned about the ancient Egyptian beliefs in the afterlife, their burial customs, and their incredible skills in art and architecture. The attention to detail in each artifact was astonishing. For example, the masks and sarcophagi showed an incredible level of craftsmanship and artistry, and I could almost imagine the lives of the people who created and used them thousands of years ago. Next, I moved on to the Greek and Roman galleries. These sections featured statues, pottery, coins, and everyday objects that revealed the sophistication and culture of these ancient civilizations. One of the highlights was the Elgin marbles, which are classical Greek sculptures that originally decorated the Parthenon in Athens. Seeing these sculptures in person was an unforgettable experience. The precision of the carvings, the graceful poses, and the expressions on the figures all conveyed a sense of beauty and history. I spent a long time observing each detail, trying to read the signs and explain them in English to myself, which was excellent practice for my listening and speaking skills. The museum also had fascinating exhibits from Asia, including intricate Chinese ceramics, Japanese samurai armor, and Indian sculptures. Each artifact told a story about the culture, religion, and daily life of the people who created it. I particularly enjoyed reading about the techniques used to create these objects and how they reflected the society's values and traditions. I tried to describe what I saw in full sentences, practicing phrases such as, "This sculpture is very detailed and shows the skill of the artist," or, "The patterns on this vase are beautiful and symbolic." Practicing English in this way while surrounded by art and history made learning both meaningful and enjoyable. One of the things I loved most about the British Museum was that it allows visitors to explore at their own pace. I could stop and spend several minutes in front of an exhibit, taking notes, reading descriptions, and even imagining stories about the people who once used or created these artifacts. For example, I spent time looking at ancient tools and weapons, trying to picture how they were used in daily life or in battle. I also explored medieval European art, including illuminated manuscripts and religious objects. Each item offered a chance to learn new vocabulary related to history, art, and culture, such as artifact, ceremony, civilization, sculpture, and manuscript. As I continued through the museum, I noticed how well organized the galleries were. Clear signs and maps helped visitors navigate, and information panels provided explanations in simple English, which was helpful for learners like me. Audio guides were also available, offering detailed explanations about the most important exhibits. Listening to the audio guide allowed me to improve my English listening skills while gaining a deeper understanding of the history behind each artifact. I learned to describe objects in English, discuss their origin, and express my opinions about them, which made the visit both educational and practical for language practice. Another section that caught my attention was the African and Middle Eastern galleries. These areas displayed masks, textiles, jewelry, and ceremonial objects that reflected the rich cultures and traditions of these regions. I was fascinated by the diversity of artistic expression and how each piece communicated meaning, whether it was for religious purposes, social status, or everyday use. Observing these artifacts helped me expand my vocabulary, and I often repeated sentences aloud to practice pronunciation and fluency. I used phrases such as, "This mask is made of wood and decorated with colorful patterns," or, "The textile shows the skill and creativity of the people who made it." Spending several hours at the British Museum, I felt as though I had traveled through time and across continents. Each exhibit offered a new opportunity to learn something about the world and its history. I also realized that visiting a museum is an excellent way to practice English because it combines reading, listening, and speaking in a meaningful context. I read information panels, listened to audio guides, discussed exhibits with other visitors, and even recorded myself describing what I saw to improve my pronunciation. By the end of my visit, I had gained a greater appreciation for world history and human creativity. The British Museum is not just a place to see artifacts, it is a place to engage with culture, practice language skills, and reflect on the achievements of humanity. Whether you are interested in ancient civilizations, art, or history, the museum offers something for everyone. I highly recommend spending several hours exploring its galleries, taking your time to read, observe, and practice English along the way. Visiting the British Museum was a memorable experience that combined education, culture, and language learning. It allowed me to see incredible artifacts, practice my English in a real-world setting, and deepen my understanding of global history. I left the museum feeling inspired, knowledgeable, and excited to continue exploring London. The British Museum is truly a must-visit destination for anyone traveling to London, whether for leisure, learning, or language practice. After spending a day exploring historic landmarks like the Tower of London, Buckingham Palace, and the British Museum, I decided to experience one of London's most famous cultural attractions, a show in the West End. The West End is London's premier theatre district and is renowned for its world-class productions, ranging from classic plays to modern musicals. Walking through the bustling streets, I could feel the excitement in the air. The neon lights of theatre marquees illuminated the evening sky, and crowds of people were lining up to see various performances. The atmosphere was lively and vibrant, and it was clear that theatre is an integral part of London's culture. I had chosen to see a production of The Lion King, one of the most popular shows in the West End. As I entered the theatre, I was immediately impressed by the grandeur of the building's interior. The lobby was beautifully decorated, with elegant chandeliers, comfortable seating, and displays highlighting the history of the production. I purchased my ticket in advance, but the box office staff were friendly and helpful, speaking clearly and politely, which also gave me a chance to practice my English in a real-life situation. Taking my seat in the theater, I felt a mix of anticipation and excitement. The stage was large and beautifully designed, with elaborate sets, vibrant colors, and intricate details. I noticed how attentive the staff were in guiding the audience and ensuring that everyone was comfortable. The theater itself had excellent acoustics, allowing the music and dialogue to reach every corner of the room clearly. As the lights dimmed and the curtains opened, the show began, and I was immediately captivated. The performance was truly mesmerizing. The actors and actresses were incredibly talented, singing, dancing, and acting with such skill and energy. The costumes were elaborate and colorful, bringing the characters to life in a way that was both visually stunning and emotionally engaging. I particularly enjoyed the puppetry used for the animal characters, which was innovative and highly creative. The way the performers moved and interacted with the puppets made the story come alive, and I found myself completely absorbed in the narrative. One of the most striking aspects of watching a show in the West End was the combination of music, storytelling, and visual spectacle. Each song was performed with perfect timing, and the choreography was synchronized flawlessly with the music. I found myself tapping my feet, clapping along, and even singing quietly to some of the familiar tunes. The audience, including both locals and tourists, reacted enthusiastically to every scene, creating a shared sense of enjoyment and excitement. It was fascinating to observe how theater can bring people together from all over the world through a shared experience. Watching The Lion King also gave me a chance to practice listening comprehension in English. The dialogue was clear, and the actors' pronunciation was excellent. I paid close attention to the lyrics of the songs, trying to understand every word while also enjoying the performance. Some phrases and idioms were new to me, so I made mental notes to look them up later. I also practiced repeating some of the sentences in my mind, which helped improve both my vocabulary and pronunciation. By the end of the show, I felt more confident in my listening skills and inspired to use English in creative and enjoyable contexts. Another interesting aspect of the West End experience was observing the theater etiquette and cultural norms. Audience members were polite, attentive, and respectful of the performers. People applauded at appropriate moments, laughed at the humorous scenes, and remained quiet during dramatic or emotional moments. It was a great lesson in how theater culture works in English-speaking countries. I tried to follow these conventions as well, making sure I did not disturb the performance while still enjoying the show fully. The intermission gave me a chance to stretch, visit the lobby, and chat briefly with other audience members. Many were tourists like me, sharing their excitement about seeing a West End production for the first time. Some were regular theatergoers who had already seen multiple shows in London. Listening to their conversations provided additional exposure to natural English, including expressions and vocabulary related to theater, music, and entertainment. Phrases like, "What did you think of the set design?" or "The choreography was incredible" were new to me, and I made a point of remembering them for future use. After the intermission, the second act began, and the story continued to unfold beautifully. The emotional depth of the performance was remarkable, with moments that were both heartwarming and suspenseful. I was impressed by the stamina and professionalism of the performers, as they maintained high energy and precision throughout the show. The combination of lighting, sound effects, and set changes created a dynamic and immersive experience. Every scene was carefully crafted to maintain the audience's engagement and bring the story to life in vivid detail. As the final scene concluded, the audience erupted into applause, cheering and standing to show their appreciation. I joined in enthusiastically, feeling a sense of satisfaction and joy. The experience of watching a show in the West End was more than just entertainment, it was an opportunity to engage with English culture, improve my language skills, and witness world-class performance art firsthand. The memories of the music, the costumes, and the energy of the performers stayed with me long after I left the theater. Leaving the theater, I reflected on how much I had learned from this experience. I had practiced listening, expanded my vocabulary, and gained confidence in understanding spoken English in a live setting. I also gained a deeper appreciation for London's cultural richness and the importance of theatre in the city's identity. The West End is a vibrant and exciting part of London, offering visitors a unique opportunity to experience the magic of live performance while simultaneously enhancing their language skills. Overall, watching a show in the West End was an unforgettable highlight of my London trip. From the excitement of arriving at the theatre to the breathtaking performance on stage, every moment was filled with wonder, learning, and cultural enrichment. I highly recommend that anyone visiting London take the time to see a show in the West End, whether it is a musical, play, or other theatrical production. It is an experience that combines entertainment, education, and language practice in the most enjoyable way possible. On the last day of my London trip, I decided to relax and enjoy one of the city's most famous green spaces, Hyde Park. This beautiful park is located in central London and is an ideal place to unwind after several days of sightseeing. As I entered the park, I was immediately struck by its vast open spaces, well-maintained gardens, and peaceful atmosphere. The sounds of birds singing and the gentle rustle of leaves in the wind created a sense of calm that was a perfect contrast to the busy streets of the city. I began my visit with a leisurely walk along the park's wide paths, surrounded by tall trees and colorful flower beds. People were jogging, walking dogs, and riding bicycles, which added life and energy to the environment without disturbing the peaceful atmosphere. I noticed how families and friends were enjoying picnics, reading books, or simply sitting on benches and talking. It was easy to see why Hyde Park is such a popular destination for both locals and tourists alike. One of the highlights of my visit was the Serpentine, a large lake in the park. I decided to rent a rowboat and spend some time on the water. Paddling gently across the lake, I admired the reflections of the trees and sky on the surface, and I felt completely relaxed. Being on the water gave me a unique perspective of the park and allowed me to enjoy the tranquility of nature right in the heart of London. Walking back along the paths, I reflected on the importance of parks in urban life. Hyde Park not only offers a beautiful place to enjoy nature but also provides opportunities for recreation, exercise, and social interaction. Visiting the park was a perfect way to end my trip, giving me a moment to relax, appreciate London's natural beauty, and reflect on all the amazing experiences I had during my stay.